There are a couple of versions of this story, one in which he drove the snakes into the sea by banging a drum, and another where he drove them out with a sermon he preached from a hillside. Dark clouds churn over the restless sea, its inky waves crashing against the jagged cliffs of an unfamiliar shore. The air is thick with salt and the cries of unseen things, creatures that whisper through the wind. Somewhere beyond the mist, a boy shivers in chains, the iron biting into his wrist like the fangs of a beast. He does not yet know that this cursed land, wild and untamed, will one day bear his name in legend. Ireland is a land of myth and mystery, where spirits wail in the night. Ancient gods slumber beneath the hills, and death rides upon a headless steed. It is a place where the veil is thin, where curses cling like shadows, and where the stories told in flickering candlelight are never just stories. But not all ghosts are born from the dead. Some are shaped by fate itself. Now, while St. Patrick is widely considered the patron saint of Ireland, the man himself was not Irish. He was born somewhere in Roman or sub-Roman Britain, roughly sometime in the 5th century. All that is known for sure is that he was born sometime around the end of Roman rule in Britain. His birthplace, too, is not known with any degree of certainty. In his autobiography, Confessio, St. Patrick says that when he was 16, he was abducted by Irish pirates and taken back to Ireland as a slave. He lived there as an animal herder for 6 years until he was able to escape and return to his family. In Confessio, St. Patrick also admits that early in his life, he was not a believer in the faith despite his grandfather being a priest. It wasn't until his time as a slave that he was not only introduced to the Irish culture, which came to define his life, but also began to deepen his relationship with God. After 6 years of working as a shepherd, St. Patrick heard the voice of God tell him that he would return home soon and that his ship was ready. So, St. Patrick fled from his master, escaping to a port some 200 miles away. Upon arriving, he found a ship, and with no small degree of difficulty, convinced the captain to take him back home. Dates are kind of vague on exactly when these events all transpired, but given St. Patrick died in either the late 5th or early 6th century, we can at least say, with some confidence, that it was some point in the 5th century that he was taken and lived as a slave in Ireland. After returning home, St. Patrick became a cleric, after which he returned to Northern and Western Ireland to spread Christianity. He gets a lot, if not most, of the credit for converting Ireland to Christianity, despite the fact there is evidence of earlier missionaries being there before him. By this point, St. Patrick was in his early 20s when he had a vision telling him to return to Ireland and spread the word of Christianity. This he did with gusto, establishing monasteries and missions throughout. One of the most famous legends around St. Patrick is his banishing of all snakes on the Emerald Isle. It is said that while fasting upon a mountain, that Patrick was attacked by snakes. There are a couple of versions of this story, one in which he drove the snakes into the sea by banging a drum, and another where he drove them out with a sermon he preached from a hillside. In yet a differing version of the story, it was not snakes that attacked St. Patrick, but a pagan goddess named Cora, and that he didn't banish her to the sea but to a lake. It's far more likely these tales are allegories for St. Patrick's mission to rid Ireland of pagans. The snakes, or goddesses, are representative of these heathens. Originally speaking, St. Patrick's Day was a solemn one. It is celebrated by the Irish as a day of religious obligation. It was immigrants, especially ones in the US, that shaped this solemn holy day into the more raucous and festive secular holiday most of us would be familiar with. Celebrated March 17th, which is the supposed date of St. Patrick's death, it was in large cities with high populations of Irish immigrants that staged the most elaborate and lavish celebrations. Boston, for example, held its first St. Patrick's Day parade in 1737, New York in 1762. In Chicago, since the 1960s, they have dyed the river green despite the traditional color associated with the day being blue. The color green has largely come to be the one most commonly associated with the day and its multitude of celebrations. Irish and non-alike participate in the tradition of wearing green or a shamrock. Most of these traditions have been adopted by Ireland, but mostly to indulge the tourists who come to the country. One of Ireland's most famous legends is that of the Blarney Stone. The stone itself is said to have been added to the Blarney Castle circa 1446. The origin of the stone itself is somewhat mysterious. Some say it's Jacob's pillow, a stone brought to Ireland by the prophet Jeremiah. Others say it's the rock Moses drew water from while the Israelites wandered the desert. Situated in a precarious position high atop a tower, one must literally bend over backward and hang across a gaping hole in order to kiss the stone. From said position, you can look straight down to the cold hard ground, dozens of feet below. It's probably not much of a stretch to think that the legend, good luck, associated with kissing the stone comes from the fact the person undertaking the feat didn't plummet to their death. In modern times, however, there are wrought iron bars in place to keep such a tragedy from occurring. Not only is the stone said to be lucky, but the ones who do so are said to be bequeathed the gift of gab, the art of eloquence. There is a darker side to the tale of the Blarney Stone, tales of people who met terrible fates. The curse is said to befall anyone who removes a single stone or even a piece of one from the grounds of Blarney Castle. Perhaps all that good luck comes from leeching the luck of the thieves that have pilfered stones from the ancient site. Many stories associated with the curse are a bit vague, such as the story of a Canadian tourist who suffered months of misfortune before returning his stolen keepsake to his home. Though a more detailed one comes from a journalist in South Carolina that allegedly purchased what was considered to be a piece of the Blarney Stone from an estate sale for $1. She reported that afterwards her work began to slow to a crawl, and she began to suffer from depression. Attributing this to the rock, she mailed it back to Blarney Castle and alleges that once it was no longer in her possession, that she felt better. The woman says she purchased the stone from the estate of a priest who had lived a sad life. It makes one wonder if taking stones from the castle doesn't necessarily cause bad luck, but some kind of change in mood. Often, when one is suffering from depression and the world seems ugly, it can feel as if one is suffering from the worst possible luck imaginable. Be it bad luck or depression, it could still be the result of the curse of the Blarney Stone. Montpelier Hill, near Dublin, was once home to an ancient passage grave with a cairn of stones marking it. In 1725, William Connolly destroyed the cairn and built a hunting cabin in its place. Stories say that Connolly used one of the grave standing stones as the lintel of his fireplace during the construction. After Connolly's death, the property is said to have been purchased by the Irish Hellfire Club, a notorious club founded by Richard Parsons in 1735. Parsons was known for dabbling in black magic. The club's members met at locations across Dublin and were known for abnormal behavior and debauchery, including both sex and alcohol. Due to the secrecy surrounding the club and its goings-ons, lots of rumors were born that claimed it was a collection of Satanists and devil worshippers. The club's president was called the King of Hell, and adorned clothing to make him look like the devil, complete with horns, wings, and cloven hooves. It's also said that at every meeting of the club there was a special place set for Satan himself, should he ever choose to attend. Black masses and ritual sacrifice of cats and even servants are said to have taken place in the old lodge. Stories also persist that the building was even intentionally set ablaze to enhance its hellish appearance. There are several famous stories associated with the Hellfire Club, the most famous of which being one where the devil doth make his appearance. It is said that one night, a stranger joined the club for a game of cards, and when one of the players dropped a card on the ground and bent to pick it up, he noticed the stranger had cloven hooves in the place of his feet. The Dullahan. The very name itself sounds ominous and foreboding. The entity itself is even more terrifying, often depicted as either a headless rider atop a black horse or a coachman carrying its own head. It varies in telling whether the creature has no head or is carrying its head, either on its hand or under its arm. In the stories where the beast carries its head around, the severed appendage is said to have a grotesque appearance, often described as having no color. The Dullahan's mouth is said to be full of razor-sharp teeth, forming a grin that reaches the size of its head, its massive eyes darting about constantly, while its flesh has taken on the smell, color, and consistency of moldy cheese. Legend also speaks of the headless coach, or in Irish, Coast Boathar. Robert Lind called it the soundless coach when he told of the silent shadow of a coach passing by. In Hanlon's Mill, Michael McNoonan is returning from a trip to the shoemaker when a coach drawn by 6 headless black horses and driven by a headless coachman clad in black passes him by. The next morning, he hears that Master Rickson had suffered a fit and died. Needless to say, the Dullahan is often seen as an omen of misfortune and death. In other versions of the story, the Dullahan appears in conjunction with the Banshee. The Banshee wails, signaling the death or impending death of a person, and the Dullahan arrives driving Coist Bohan to collect the souls of the departed, to drive them into the afterlife. The Banshee, or Lady of the Fairy Mound, is tied to the cider mounds that dot the Irish countryside. The Irish legends tell of a lament being sung by a fairy woman, or banshee. She would sing the lament when a family member had died, even if the person was far away and the news had not yet arrived. In such cases, the wail would be the first indication there had been a death. She is also considered a predictor of death. It is said that when a person is about to enter a place or situation where they are unlikely to come out alive, she will signal a warning by letting out her wail. Often, the banshee is associated with Coist Bohan and is said to either be able to summon it by keening or to travel in tandem with the dark coach. It is also believed that when several banshee appear at once, it is to herald the passing of a great or holy person. Some tales recount that the woman, although called a fairy, is actually the ghost of a specific woman who was either murdered or died during childbirth. In parts of Leinster, she is called Bín Caonti and is said to have a wail so piercing that it can shatter glass, while in Scotland there is a similar entity known as Bín Nai, Little Washerwoman, that is said to be seen washing the bloodstained clothing or armor of those who are about to die. Ireland is a land where history and myth blur, where saints walk the same roads as spirits, and where the echoes of the past never truly fade. St. Patrick may have banished the serpents, but the darkness they represented lingers in the forgotten corners of the world, collided in the old stories that refuse to die. The Blarney Stone still whispers secrets, the Hellfire Club still carries the weight of its wicked past, and on certain moonlit nights, a black coach may still be seen rolling silently through the mist. The Banshee's wail continues to pierce the veil between life and death, and the Dullahan still rides, its grotesque grin a harbinger of misfortune. Legends do not rest. They wait. They evolve. They slip into the cracks of time, resurfacing when the air grows heavy and the fires burn low. Perhaps that is the true legacy of Ireland, not just the saints, but the shadows they left behind. Because in the end, every story, no matter how holy, has its ghosts. And if you listen closely, you can still hear them whispering. Be sure to follow for more eerie tales and legends.